basically the main difference now from Final Cut is that everything is stored in a library, and the library before, before the libraries, you would just have shortcuts on the desktop. Now this library is the shortcut. When you double click it, it brings in everything, the raw, the timelines, the sequence, everything is in here. Um, if you want to look at the structure of it, you can right click on the library. You can go to show package contents, and you see the event here, the date of the event. Inside that, you'll find the original media, and that those are all your individual clips, all the raw. So this is how this is structured. Apple made it so that it looks like an icon, and you can't mess with it unless you right click. So now I have here two libraries, the one that I just double clicked, and then a package that I was working on earlier. Inside here you have all the projects. The projects are what used to be called the sequences. When you create a new project, it is very important to, new event. It is very important to switch it to custom, and depending on what kind of shop you are, if you're 720, have it on 720 and the correct frame rate. If you leave it on the default, which is set based on the first video clip, it could screw you up. If you bring any other format, it will change your sequence to that or your project to that, and when you export, it's going to play sped up and all that. So you just create a project like this. The audio settings can be default. Those don't matter. If you have a quick VO, the advantage of this system now is you have a different type of timeline now. You have a magnetic strip here instead of having the traditional V1, A1, A2 tracks and channels. You have only a clip with metadata. So when you drop that into the timeline, I can do a couple edits real quick. And you select a clip here, you're going to see the information on the right side. You're going to have all the channels in here. They'll live within that block. So now you can deselect whatever channels you're not using. This is totally different than before, because before you would just see the channels underneath and you can delete them or move them around. Here, if you want to do a back time, you double click on the actual clip itself, and you can drag the audio back, and it has a built-in keyframe, and you can drag the keyframe and cushion the audio that way. You can also double click on it again and it'll hide it, and that way it doesn't look as messy. Also, the cool thing about this is that you can actually see the levels visually without having to listen to the clip. So I can easily adjust the levels to within the right format that I want, or the right level. At our shop, we want them they peak at -12 instead of 0 because of the way our audio board is configured. So visually, I know that -12 is around the middle here. So I would just drag my where I can do a shortcut and put them right in the middle. Basically, this right here represents visually from here to here, and when it goes to red, you're at 0 or above 0, and in the yellow, you're between -6 and 0. So I can visually see where everything is. Before in Final Cut 7, you had to just listen and then write the levels and adjust them, which is kind of neat. And this is geared towards speed in that sense. The other cool thing is if I wanted to just highlight all of my, if I have, I have previous edits here, I can highlight a whole bunch of things at once if I want them, or all of them. So here, let me just highlight these 3, and I can hit my shortcut, and it'll drop them into the timeline. I can later rearrange the way I have them. I can at once, if I don't want any audio, I can all at once just select all of them, and just whatever channels I don't want, I can turn them off or on. And it does it for all of them at the same time, the ones that I highlighted. The export, the export is a lot slower when you are talking about big files. What happens is Final Cut 7, you have the option to recompress frames or not recompress frames. Final Cut 10 always recompresses frames, so you always have this extra, rendering when you export. But
there's no way to turn that off.
There's no way to turn that off. If they put that button, they would make that a little bit better. But the cool thing about Final Cut 10 is you know when you export a package, you know how long it always takes the same amount of time, no matter how many edits you have, because of the background rendering. So as you're editing, it's background rendering whatever you have on the timeline. So when it comes time to export, I don't care how complicated your project is, it's gonna take always a minute or so to export. So you can always manage your time that way. And in Final Cut 7, sometimes you had a complicated project and you'd export it, it would take 7 minutes. But that's because you had a lot of pictures and a lot of things. What Final Cut 10 gives you is consistency in the export time. So let's hit export. The traditional exporter would be just selecting master file. Now, before you export, you can actually scroll through your package to make sure everything's in there and you don't have any black frames. So I'm gonna export this package. This one's kind of it's a long one, it's 143. So if I go to master file, I can really quickly just scan my package, make sure there's nothing in there. The other thing is you see your settings right underneath. You see that it's 720, 59 frames per second. When I go to my export settings, I have the option to change the video codec to whatever I want it to be. In our case, we shoot EX, XCam EX. So this step would be important for everyone that uses EX.
Is there a way to save that or not?
There is. This is the long way to export. And what this way allows you to do is you can export it as a multi-track QuickTime, and you can essentially make it dual mono if you wanted to. Like, to give you an example, if I grab my track and I want this particular track to be in a different channel, I just go to select that track, where I select the source. When you start editing, you go to the info here and you just switch that to something else. You can create a custom or switch it to, just label it as music. It has this thing that says, this has got this feature, it's called roles, and they're basically it's just telling you what do you want to classify this as. And I'm just gonna say music just to make it different from everything else. The default is dialogue, so everything right now is labeled as dialogue. So when it comes time to export, it will know that I have something that's labeled differently. So in terms of audio, so when I go here and I export to our format, I can select to export it as a multi-track QuickTime. I can, it shows me now that I have some things that are labeled as dialogue and some things labeled as music. It allows me to export each one as mono or stereo. Stereo would give me 2 channels for each, but I just want dual mono, so I'm just going to do mono. And that's the advantage of exporting it the long way, is that you could essentially export a package with however many tracks you want, designate a track for whatever, maybe sound effects, one for music, one for anything you want. So later on, if somebody edits from that package, they don't have to have mixed audio. The other feature is that you can go into compressor, into either compressor, the old compressor or the new compressor. I have both installed in this computer, and you can create a preset. And what that does is it appears right here, and I just have a preset that I can select, which is in our format, and all I do is hit next, and it will just automatically do the settings that I programmed in the compressor. So it reads compressor presets. So let me cancel that. Let me show you how to add these shortcuts. So for example, if I go to File, Share, and I choose to add a destination, I've got all these custom presets that I can set up. The compressor settings are right here. I drag this over. Inside here, I can see all my custom presets. I can choose, let's say I don't have 1080i right here, XCam. Hit OK, and now I have one here. If I want to make this my default, I right click it. I make it the default. So now every time I just hit the shortcut Command E for export, it just automatically goes to the one that I made default. So that speeds up the export process. The only drawback is that it's always in stereo, so you don't have control over the audio as much, because it's just a compressor preset. So depending on what you're editing, you may want to use the long way, or you may want to use the shortcut. Editing is it's very difficult at first because you got to get used to the timeline, and that's the biggest hurdle, because the timeline actually has rules. You know, you have the magnetic timeline, and you can't turn off the magnet. So every time you put something, it always wants to snap back into place, and figuring out the rules is what's gonna, you know, make it a challenge. Um, Eventually, though, when you understand how this works, your package will look like this one. I have a fully edited package right here, still loading up. But it's just going to look like that. You just have squares, you know, this is the A roll and the B roll just on top. Final Cut 7 used to look, you know, a lot different than this. But the product, once you play it, it looks the same as anything you would want to do. You know, just notice how my audio channels are always married to the video. I didn't even have to separate the audio. If you're trying to separate, detach the audio, you're doing something wrong. You don't always have to do it. If you want to, you could. Like, I could split it like that and move this around, but it's just gonna make things complicated. So usually
I just split it.
Usually you just go like that. Oh, to split, really easy. You can remember the shortcut, or you can right click, and everything you can shortcut is in here. One of them is detach audio. So if you do it enough, you'll remember the shortcut and you just keep doing it. Other things that you usually want to do is lift it from the storyline. It'll lift it like that, and then you can move it around without affecting that spot. The reason that's important is if I just took this and lifted it, look what happens. Yeah. So, and it's one of the things you have to deal with. People are used to just moving stuff around without rules. Now there are rules, so you have to know the rules and use them to your advantage. That's the biggest hurdle. The other thing is, you know, honestly, the program is not as bad as it was when it first started, but it does have a little bit of a lag. So if I were to press play here, it takes about a second. Yeah, when Final Cut 7 didn't have that lag. I've gotten used to it, and it doesn't really affect my editing anymore. But I mean, hopefully that'll speed up with you know, better computer or maybe an update. But other than that, I don't notice anything too insane other than that lag. You know?
How easy is it to put in Dissolve?
Oh, the dissolves are really easy. I mean, you have the shortcut to just, you know, I just do Command T.
What did you do? What did you press? I mean, you clicked on something, then what do you do?
You click on the edge. So I'm gonna zoom in here. Okay. So you click on the edge of the clip, and you hit Command T, and that's just a traditional cross dissolve. Now, if I want to make it longer, there are shortcuts for that. I mean, you can do it the old way, which is just, you know, to do this, stretch it. But there's shortcuts. You hit Control D for the duration, and you just enter the number of frames that you want. So if you want 10 frames, it just goes to that. The other thing is, if you want to set your default, you can go to your preferences and go to your, actually I think it's your editing. You can set your duration for the transition to 20.20 seconds or whatever fraction you want. So every time you drop a shortcut for the transition, it'll be 20.20. Same with still images, it'll remember them, the duration that you want. The other cool thing about Final Cut is if you go to the tabs for effects and music and all that stuff, it's a lot faster than before. So if I want to see an effect before I even drop it down, all I really have to do is mouse over the effect, and I can see what it's going to do. And then I can see what the effect does. There's no need for me to drop it. And if I do drop it, it never gives me a red bar. I never really see that red bar that in the video never goes away. So you don't have to slow down to render it. You can turn off background rendering if you don't like it, and it'll just show you the render bar, but you'll still be able to see the video, which is kind of neat. And that doesn't slow you down in that sense.
But it's rendering right now.
This one, I turned it off for this one, for this project.
Oh, okay.
It depends what your preference is. I mean, I don't like background rendering so much because I like to be in control of when because sometimes I experiment and I don't want it to render something that I don't want to mess with. So I do it
not
manually.
like that.
You like the old Final Cut, but if you turn it on, the background rendering, you can set it to every 5 seconds. When it's inactive for 5 seconds, it'll do it, or whatever duration you want.
How do you manually render?
You can use the shortcut here. This is the shortcut for it, or you can actually go into this menu and do it yourself. All the shortcuts, like with Mac labels, all of their shortcuts in the menu when you find it. And then anytime you have a question, you just go to the help and how do I, and then it'll show you. So if I want to go render, you just find it and show you. So it's pretty user friendly.
Once you export that, let's see how long it takes.
Sure.
How long is the project?
This project is 1 minute and 44 seconds. I'm gonna use the preset. So the other cool thing, hold on, let me relabel it something else. The other cool thing is when you export, you're not here waiting for the bar to finish like the old Final Cut. The other cool thing is you can actually go and start editing another VO or whatever you have to do. So the editors are not tied down. I can go and create another project. I can start editing a sod bow, and it's still exporting down here.
Where's my progress?
Progress is right here. So if you click on this circle, it shows you the old traditional bar, and it shows you what it's doing. But you can hide it if you just click it. It goes away. Same with the audio meters. For some reason, they have this option. You can hide them, or you can turn them on just by clicking here. This will screw people up if they might turn on the program and they might think they have no audio meters, but it's just this little thing here. Same with this. This throws people off because when I exported, I was able to start editing again, and people think, oh, it's done exporting, but it's not done exporting. The progress is really in this little bar right here.
And that's the percentage that goes up.
Yeah, so it's about 43% right now. The average, in my experience, about a minute and a half to export it. But like I said, it's really consistent. There's no 7-minute exports for a package.
Would you say it's like a real-time export? So it's a minute 44. It's going to take you a minute 44 to export.
A little bit less. It's not quite as long as you can see. We just started the export. I don't know, maybe almost a minute or 45 seconds or a minute ago. I mean, we can time it later, but it's already at 70%, and it'll just. It's not too bad, The only the thing that makes up for the not as quick of an export because it recompresses frames is the fact that you can work on other stuff while it's doing it.
Right.
So editors, while they're working for the show, they're multitasking constantly. So they're exporting and they're starting on the next VO, and all of a sudden when it's done, the program will show them on the corner that your thing is done, and you can just upload it. When this is done, you're going to see it pop up on the right corner. So see, now I know that it's done. And then I just go and upload it into Tons if I need to. So yeah, that was about a minute 30, I would say. Roughly.
How do you get your video in?
To get my video in, so you have two buttons right here. You have the in, right here, the in arrow to import. And the shortcut right here is the out. So you have both. The opposite corners. So when you go here on the in, you can create shortcuts for your favorite places, or find the server here, or find your video card. And this is from my video card right here. I can choose this view here, or I can choose this view right here, and I can see every clip that I want. I can mouse over it and see what it is. The other cool thing is when you do import, it's an immediate import to start logging, and it just imports in the background. So for example, what that means is if I grab this clips right here, select them, and I hit import, here I choose where I want it to go, what event. I'm going to actually, I'll leave it here, it's fine. So now, if I look for it, it's already in. Notice how I can start editing it. But notice how there's a little wheel here. Mm-hmm. That means it's not completely in. I'm just looking at the proxy. Okay. So it allows you to start editing from the proxy. And also, here, let me go to a fresh sequence to show you how that is. So I can go in, out, in, out, in, out. If you have steady shots, you can edit a VO pretty fast. and then I just select those and then hit the shortcut. Now you have a quick, deal thing. You can adjust the levels all at the same time if you want. Let me close that. Selected all 6 clips. I can either turn off whatever channels I want, and then I can adjust the levels from all of them at the same time. So now they're all done. I can change the order. And it's not even done importing. I already cut a small VO.
Can you export? You can't, obviously can't export.
No, it won't let you. With this program, what you do is you try to multitask. You'll be one step ahead. So when this is done exporting, you can importing, you can export it. But most of the time, you're not faster than the import. It allows you to import stuff, ingest stuff, and then give it to your reporter, and they can start logging. Before, I had to wait for the soundbite to get in before I can give them my computer for them to log. Now here you go, start logging. By the time they're done logging, I get the computer back, and everything's imported anyway. So that's kind of an advantage there.
And you guys, what do you do to get the video on your drive? You guys store it someplace?
Yeah, we have the server right here, and then all we do is we drag our library, where we have it in our movies folder or our desktop. You just drag the library over to the shared hard drive or server that we have. Other stations may not have that option. They may actually have a designated computer. I'm not sure.
So
how the
just
network's
real
set up.
quick,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have your video. Where are you loading it? When you come in after you shot something, what do you do?
After I shot something, I would ingest it as a library. So, for example, these are my libraries. And they're labeled as the event. So this is
create a new library.
New library always. The library becomes everything. So all I have to do is drag that library.
Well, show me the create a new library.
Okay, cool. So if I go File, New Library, I'll just label it Test, and then so the library has by default an event. Inside that event is where I'm going to import my video. So I can do just for 3 clips for speed. So now it's importing. This one's done. So now it's done with this. So now I can close that library. Let's say this was a VO or a RAW for a VO that I shot, and just minimize it. I go to the server. I go to where we store our stuff that we share it. So I'm going to go, today's Wednesday. Put it in my RAW folder. This is where all the libraries from everyone else are. So then I just go to my movies folder, find the test library that I just created right here, and then just drag it over. Now it just uploads it, and now anyone can grab my library, download it to their computer, and start editing it. The biggest drawback so far with Final Cut 10 is that you always have to edit locally. So we thought this was going to be from the server. Yeah, we thought that was going to be a big problem, but once we started dealing with it, we realized it actually works better because when we used to edit from the server, sometimes everything slowed down because everyone was trying to work off the server. Now everyone is forced to download it to their computer and then work from it. I mean, it takes, depending on how fast your network is, for us it's pretty fast, so we just grab stuff and take anywhere from a minute to, the biggest things would take like 5 minutes. And you can just drag them. When they're done, you start working and you don't have to worry about being connected at all. So I'm trying to think anything else. I mean, it definitely, people will definitely be shocked by how different the timeline is and how they will complain about the fact that they can't work off the server. Apple did add in their update the ability to import from a server or a hard drive. You can't work off of it, but you can import from it. So, for example, I can go find in my server here. Let's see, I can go into the RAW and I can find video, and I can import it from there. I just can't work off of it. You know, so when I hit,
Can you import mark in, mark out,
oh,
several different spots?
absolutely, yeah. You can just, you should be able to just put your in. Oh, actually, I should be able to do it. Let me see. Maybe not. Actually, I don't do that very often.
So you have to bring the whole thing down.
I think so. Yeah, because I wasn't unless no. Yeah, yeah. It looks like it would give you the option, but for this particular one, it's not. Let me try from the camera. Actually, it's an interesting question.
Thank you.
So let's see. Actually, from your camera, it does allow you to do
More
it.
than one. Can you put like 5 different ins and outs on it?
That's a good question
like
too. Let's see.
Nope.
No, only one at a time.
So you'd have to do one import, one import, one import.
Yeah, if you
It's just
exactly.
easier to do it all at once.
It is, especially since there's no. You can edit off the. You can log off the proxy, and then you can, for example, like this is a really long soundbite, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and, deselect. Actually, here are the ranges here. So if I were to import this part here, so this one is at the top. I might have already had it in there, but yeah, I had it already. But anyway, when you're waiting for it to import, the reporter could create a new project. They can label it. We do that a lot. We label it sound, and they could, when they start logging, they can put it in and outs on their sound bites, drop them, and then drop them, and then when they're done, I have a sequence right here with all the sound bites, or a project with all the sound bites, and then when I create another one named package. I can go back and forth between the package and that one, and I can copy
that. And you have to copy and paste.
Yeah, copy and paste it. Copying and paste it. So,
so you can't import the timeline. You can't import the project into another project.
No, I think by definition, unless you can make it a compound clip. See, there's another workaround. If you make it a compound clip,
and then it goes into
it goes into my bin.
I got it.
So then from here, I could grab the sound bites from here.
Got it. Okay.
That's the other, if you don't want to go back and forth with copy and paste. So there's some workarounds.
Okay.
And it's fairly fast to do that. There's no rendering. There are some quirks with the program. A lot of times when your program is misbehaving, it could be because you have a lot of other things open in the background. It doesn't like many programs open at the same time. It's not like Final Cut 7 where you could do that. Here, I think it's more sensitive to that. The other thing is your preferences from time to time will get corrupted, and you have to go into your preferences and delete them, and then restart the computer, and then it'll reset them. It doesn't happen very often, but I do mine just for maintenance every month or so. And the instructions to do that, I just took a screen grab of them from Apple.
Okay.
And this is how you clear your preferences. There was one time that one of our computers had a really bad problem with Final Cut wasn't acting well at all, and I actually went and deleted. I created from the computer, I created a actual copy of the preferences in that computer. I deleted the entire preferences folder, the contents of the preference folder. I restarted the computer, it regenerated everything, tested Final Cut, it was working perfectly fine, and all I did is I dragged the remaining preferences that I was missing back into it, and hit, I count it all, drag them into it, hit skip the ones that are already there, and then it restored my computer back to normal. Final Cut acted like brand new. So that's just usually if something wrong is happening in Final Cut, it's usually the preferences. Just so that in case people come up to you or check that folder, check the preferences, reset them. I haven't had any issue that it doesn't come from that, basically, with Final Cut. I mean, you can download stuff from the internet. Like a lot of these effects, I got from the internet. They're free, and then they're not built into Final Cut, and so you don't. you have, people will say that you don't have as many tools, but you have just as many tools, and a lot of the same effects that you had in Final Cut 7 do come to Final Cut 10. You just have to go search for them and re-download them.